Hi, Alex. Thanks for your time. How are you?
Hi, Alexei. I'm good. It's a nice day here in Ireland.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So let's jump straight into some of the questions. The readers are really curious to know, how does trademark, the whole process, how does it work? So let me, ask you the very first question. Maybe can you walk us through the trademark process? How does it actually work?
Well, any trademark process would start with a search. And this is the first step that every person considering to register a trademark. First of all, they need to have a trademark in place, which could be a brand name or could be a graphics, could be a logo, for example, or an image. So a person should have some sort of a brand that they would like to register. Once they make that decision, the second step is to do the research to see if there's any similar ones already registered or pending registration. So a person would either do a search themselves or would delegate this process to somebody who is professional and can do a more in-depth job. Sometimes doing kind of high-level, superficial search does not guarantee results. People check trademarks, but they don't see any pending registrations, or they don't check things beyond just registration. And the reason for search is that first you can spot anything that's already registered, but then the second step that normally I would say 85% of people don't do that step. We call it analysis. It's actually analysis of your own brand. Is it distinctive enough? Does it have any restrictive words that definitely will be rejected? So doing the search for similarities is, I would say, it's only 50% of the job. The second 50% would be analysis of actually your own brand, of probability that it will get registered and it's not breaking the patent office guidelines or registrations. And the reason for that, I just give you one or two simple examples. Like you're trying to register a basic word that means what your brand is actually doing. For example, you're selling bags and you call it like good bag or something like that. It's very likely that it's not going to get registered because it actually means what it is. It's not distinctive enough and it's descriptive. Descriptive trademarks are not to be registered, or you using your own name. For example, Alex, myself, Chernenko is my surname. If I'm trying to register that as a trademark, that will be also rejected, unless I've been using it for 20, 30 years and there is like a family business going many years. So analysis is the step that quite often gets rejected. Okay, there's no trademarks, I'm going to go, and then it's rejected on the basis it's not ticking the rules. So once, let's say, these two processes are done, the second step is to decide whether you're going to apply yourself or you're going to hire essentially a trademark attorney or a trademark professional. And that would mean whether you're confident in doing it yourself or you're considering that it's better to delegate this work to somebody else. If you're doing it yourself, there is a lot of usually research involved, and of course there are chances that this could be done incorrectly. There is a risk that some of the people don't know, and this particular risk happens in European Union trademarks, is that if a trademark that was applied gets an objection, a person needs to respond to that objection, and not doing anything is actually not an option. If a person received an objection and they're not doing anything, they could be liable to pay the legal costs of the other party. It's something that, again, people don't know. They think, okay, I'm going to apply. If it doesn't work, I'm going to abandon my trademark. But abandoning is not always a solution, because there could be additional costs for actually not doing anything. And that's something that a person would never know. Now, there are other cases where a person cannot apply for trademark themselves. If, for example, somebody outside of European Union is registering a trademark in European Union without having a company or business established in European Union, they cannot do it. They need to have essentially an authorized attorney by the European Union Patent Office. Likewise, if a company or individual are not based in the United States and they're applying for American trademark, it's exactly the same process. They cannot do it directly. They need to do it through the part. It's just the rules. There is no way around it.
Mhm.
In UK, for example, it's quite easy to apply for a trademark. But if there is no company or address, a company needs to have a representative. So again, those rules are not always something that a person would know. So make a decision to apply yourself and bear a risk of not doing something correctly or not knowing, or actually delegating. If the person decides to delegate it to attorney, then of course to do a research online and to find out who would be the best person to apply. There is 2 steps here that I could recommend. And of course, doing Googling and research, reading some articles, or essentially asking through the entrepreneurship community. If somebody from your friends already registered trademark, who they used, how was the experience, or essentially doing an online research. For Amazon sellers, there is additional system that they could apply for. It's called IP Accelerator. So anybody who's selling online and would like to get their trademark registered through IP Accelerator program, they will get one benefit of actually getting additional brand registry on Amazon. So if it's just any average business who just want a trademark and they don't want to pay the premium price, they would go through a standard trademark practitioners. If it's Amazon seller and the primary goal and focus is to get brand registry set up as quickly as possible, then going through IP Accelerator is the preferred option. They will pay higher than normal price because IP Accelerator providers, they usually charge the premium, but the person would get brand registry opened in 10 days, even without trademark registered. The trademark process goes exactly the same timeline. There is no winning of time to get trademark registered, but the brand registry is opened faster because it was done through a particular program, through a particular provider. And then once the process is started, the only thing that could be done is actually monitoring if there is any objections. If they are, they usually have to be responded. If there's no objection, all is good. After a certain time, trademark gets registered. And after that, many businesses normally stop and they don't do anything. They just assume that, I have a trademark, I'm now protected for the next 10 years. That's not always the case. Another step that needs to be done on a regular basis is called trademark monitoring. It's actually when somebody every month or every 2 months checks if there is anybody who's trying to register the same trademark, or anybody trying to essentially, register something similar, exactly the same or similar space. And what usually happens that when somebody tries to register something similar, in some cases, the patent office would notify you that somebody is actually trying to register something that you already have. But in other cases, they will not. So that means it's your responsibility to check if somebody is actually registering anything. And if you don't do it, there is a chance that somebody else will register similar trademark and they will take part of your business. So you either need to do it yourself, hire somebody who can do it, or actually delegate it again to a trademark professional. And this is a very cost efficient service. I mean, it's kind of starts from maybe $40-50 per month. It's very kind of small fraction of a cost for a peace of mind that nobody else is like hijacking your trademark over time. And we recommend, but again, many businesses just avoid this step for some reason. And then one day they realize there's a new competitor, but their trademark is already registered. And at that stage, it's very hard to do something. It has to be gone through the court. But at the time of registration, there is normally 2 or 3 months window period where an objection could come in. That's why we recommend doing it monthly or 2 monthly at the biggest. If you're doing it every 3 months, there is a chance you could skip that gap. So once a month or 2 months, doing a quick search, trademark monitoring, it's something we recommend. And repeat it until the trademark expiration period of 10 years, and then just reapply for trademark. And then the cycle begins. That is the whole life cycle, I would say, of a trademark.
Okay. I think this was super detailed. So there was a lot there. So the initial research, right? Then, depending if you want to be in the EU, you might want to have like another, entity to register. Then there is this trademark duration. Then ideally you have the monitoring in place as well. Now, maybe just on the monitoring side, right? Because I think especially for us, we registered a bunch of trademarks across different brands. I always think, okay, well, I'm just paying some sort of fee for monitoring, and the lawyers are not doing anything, right? But like as you say, right, there is always a chance that somebody will try to register a trademark as well. But then and then kind of you have a conflict. But if you register for certain classes and it's for 10 years, how would another entity be able to register a trademark for the same classes? Like clearly the examiner would reject them, or the whatever trademark office would reject them.
So normally what happens in the United States and European Union, the registrar tends to reject the trademark on the fact of similarities. However, in UK, they don't usually do it. So there is a couple of trademarks that are exactly the same and they all got through. So different offices in different countries have different rules, and some offices they would reject it on the fact of similarity. Some others would they would let it through, and then it's up to the person who has the trademark to object it. And if that person doesn't object, it means they're okay, so the registration goes through. So it depends from country to country. UK, from that point of view, is very kind of how to say it, easygoing and relaxed. They put it on the shoulders of the original trademark owner. But in United States, you cannot get through. In European Union, it's still high love, but a little bit less relaxed, I would say, than the United States. And then other countries, they would be even more relaxed or easygoing from our experience.
Got it. And then we always hear about these brand hijackers, both on Amazon and outside Amazon. How do they actually work? So they see the brand registry and they track companies, if they did a fundraise and they see they haven't registered, they straight away register. Could you elaborate on that? Like, how do these operators actually operate?
Yeah, I mean, from our experience, there's a couple of cases that could come up. Some sellers, they monitor essentially the shops that are doing well, and then they're doing a quick check to see if they're registered or not. And they essentially if that brand is not registered, then they register the brand and essentially try to replicate the product, and then they would basically take over the brand, and they would link to that list, and then they would claim that they're actually the brand owner, and they would take some of the traffic. We've seen that happen. Another thing that is very very interesting, and I hope this loop is going to get closed, is sometimes somebody registered a trademark, let's say in one country like Germany. What some hijackers do, they register exactly the same trademark, not for the European Union, but in another European country. Then they set up the Amazon brand registry, and then it's actually basically steal the brand from the first person. So it's like, if there is a brand registry established for this brand, but somebody else comes in with a new trademark, it's automatically going to move to them. And we've seen this happening with some of the businesses. They register exactly trademark in another country, and then they take it over, and then it's a very complex process trying to prove who is the original winner. And when there is two trademarks in the EU, it's kind of hard to move to the next step. So we've seen that's the second case. Third case is when somebody just changes a couple of things on their trademark, and that's a way for them to do it. And I can show you very briefly. I'm not sure if it's going to get, but this is essentially a case. It's my own brand in the past. So on the right is the original, on the left is a duplicate. And as you can see, they changed just "you are braver than you think," but then they change it "than you believe." So it's like they changed the little phrase, exactly this, even the fonts before, fonts after, exactly the same. They just changed a couple of words, and they get away with it because it's a different now kind of design, just by changing a couple of things. You see, "then you think, then you believe, then you seem, and then you think." So they basically just paraphrased it a little bit. And that's it. And they can steal that product. They can sell that product while essentially it looks like a replica, and you only see the difference when you actually read the words. But that's what other stealers do. They see that your product is selling well, but you already have a trademarks in US and EU. They cannot really steal your brand, so they modify it a little bit, and they get away with it. That's another way how they do it.
But in this case, they did it under a different brand, right? So this is actually something where it's not about the brand registry, right? It's almost more about
product design, you would say.
Product design, right?
Yeah.
Which is a separate process
It's a
altogether.
separate process, exactly. Yeah, you could register a product design as well, but it's very complicated because even if you register it, but they change it a little bit, they start selling it, and the only way to actually take it down is to go through the court, and
Yeah.
it's a many year and a very expensive process to do, and not many businesses would like to go that route.
And I've seen some brand names with an R in a circle at the top right, and some have a TM. So TM means probably trademark, right? And R means probably also trademark, right? Or like, what's the difference?
It's pretty much it means trademark is used for claiming ownership of a brand and is not necessarily registered. So if you see TM, it doesn't indicate that it's actually registered. It means that somebody came up with the brand name and they just making that statement that, listen, this is my brand, go away from it. But if R, it means actually it's a registered brand. So TM is doesn't guarantee that it's registered in the office. So people could start using TM when they initiate, for example, a process of registration, but it's not there yet. So it's like giving you a signal rather than a statement that it's there. So R is a better way to use it. It means it's registered already.
Would you recommend to put R in your brand, or it's like preference?
Yeah, it's like once you show R, it means you're registered. So probably it will put away somebody who may try to copy your brand. It's like,
but it just means you're registered, but they can still try to register different classes. They can still register different countries, right?
Well, in fact, yes, but it's just a kind of a statement out there. It's like you have a badge that you have ISO accreditation and you use it to to have a better PR, better maybe brand awareness, and that R symbol is perceived as possibly something good because it's registered and it's good maybe for clients as well. So there's not that many researches done to actually say having R increases, let's say, customer loyalty in any way, but people still use it.
Yeah, makes sense. And I guess in terms of timing, right? So you obviously said, look, it's super important, etc., etc. But there is a brand and they want to start selling straight away. And I know it usually takes 6 months till you actually get your brand registered. And in the 6 months, you might have some comments from the from the office to maybe change some wording, add something, etc., etc., etc. So do you recommend, okay, guys, if you want to be really safe, don't publicize your brand until you actually have the trademark, which again delays the whole process of launching a brand by 6 months? Or do you say, okay, guys, launch it, have the register, put in the trademark application. There is a rule, of course, that if you put it in, you always have priority over other people. But nevertheless, the other people might already start trying to figure out some sort of, leak and way around you to try to, take advantage.
There is a couple of different angles to your question, and I'll do my best to answer all of them. So in the United States, for example, if you register a trademark, you need to show proof that it's used on the website, on the packaging, on the product, on the label. So just coming up with a name and not actually knowing, you could kind of reserve it, but in order to get it fully registered, you need to show that it's actually being used somewhere. You need to show it on the piece of paper. You need to show like on the brochure, product, packaging, website, or even having photos that this product is sold somewhere in the physical store. So once you do that, then you get it registered. If you just come up with a name and you haven't used it anywhere yet, you basically reserve it and you're given 6 months to kind of prolong that reservation, let's put it. And you can do it 6 times. So technically you can do it like for 3 years or so. But after that, you need to start using it. In European Union and United Kingdom, you don't need basically to prove that you are using trademark. You can just come up, put classes and go. And if there is nobody else, no objections, you get it registered. So the recommendation is dependent where you're going to. You may need to start using it. But at the same time, if if you use it, it doesn't affect your trademark application, except in the United States, but it gives you, let's say, a proof if there is any legal action against you that you actually used it on a particular date. If you just submitted it, but you haven't used it prior to that, there is a chance that somebody else could come in. Hey, listen, I have a proof that I used this name 5 years ago. This is my website and everything, and now you're registered trademark because you saw my trademark. Prove me that it's not you. So in a way, the earlier you use it, the earlier you could use this as a proof of usage, and ideally you gotta use it when you apply for it. But many businesses start using some brand name and then they register it later.
Got it.
So there is a chance that somebody could saw your brand and say this is going to be the future product, and they try to register it. And actually, we had cases like that where a client, we submitted an application and it turned out to be there was a different application the day before. Like we were very shocked. It's like how could that possibly happen? But then the client disclosed information to us that it was actually a loan bottle with another competitor. They've been kind of monitoring each other, who was doing what. And when we applied, the other party applied the day before. Imagine that. It's like it was a very close bottle. And we in that case, we couldn't do much. So those things happen.
They ended up changing their brand name.
So if that brand was registered earlier, it would not be the case. But because it was used, somebody actually tried to register it earlier. So
and they changed their name. They changed their name as a result.
As the result, they worked out some sort of a deal where one person authorized to use a trademark. Okay, so it was a history that the client did not disclose at the time of registration, but after that they kind of found some sort of a deal between themselves, and it became an internal process.
Got it. Cool. And then I guess to finish off, I mean, it's quite expensive depending on how many classes, how many countries you want to register. What would you say is the best approach to be protected, but also initially not to spend so much money on that whole process?
From our experience, if a brand is targeting a particular, let's say, jurisdiction, like somebody is going to be selling in European Union, they do not need to go probably at this stage to other countries. I mean, it's all about the budget and the strategy of growth. If somebody believes that they can go global, they could start by registering trademark in one country and then expanding it using kind of WIPO. That's one process. Or they could say, I'm going to go and register trademarks in every country, which normally is also expensive process. Or they could say, I'm going to start with United States, European Union, and for example, UK, that tend to be a preference for European sellers. But then there is, Japan, Canada, Mexico, China, etc., etc. So there is other markets out there. So the best strategy is to actually know where your clients are, where you're going to be selling over the next year or two, three, and depending on what is your budget, make those preparations steps to do it. Like you can start with one trademark and always expand it, or you can start with a couple of simultaneous applications if you believe there is a risk of, so it's all about balance, how much budget you have, how much risk you want to mitigate, and how far you would like to go in terms of countries and having your brand out there. And those three things, they would be different for different sellers. So there is no like one solution fits all. A person needs to see, I'm going to be selling in UK, then why would you bother register? But if there is a probability in 2 years you're going to expand, you could now already put a trademark for US or European Union. Or you could say, I don't need to do it right now, I will do it later.
Makes sense.
You save money now, but there is a chance somebody else sees your product in UK and tries to replicate it. So, that is the decision we cannot actually advise. I mean, our recommendation, of course, is register everywhere and as much as possible early, but it's not cost effective and it's not business effective for some sellers. So there is no point to go that way if it's not your game.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thanks so much for the advice. Really, really insightful. And have a nice day.
Alexei, and if anybody needs a trademark, we are there to help.
Absolutely.